All right, Mike Watkins, HurricaneTrack.com, HurricaneAnalytics.com. But we're doing this update for Hurricane Track. Let's be honest with ourselves here. Anyway, looking at Dorian tonight, the eye has actually become a little bit better organized. Even though the pressures have come down, the winds have not necessarily come up. That's because storms like this can either translate the energy to intensity in terms of the winds around the eye, or in this case, spreading out a little bit and expanding the radius of hurricane force winds. And what we're seeing now is, again, and especially in the last maybe 15 or 20 minutes, let me get a yellow thing here. Notice the eye has become much rounder than it was earlier today. That's a suggestion that, of course, the storm is getting better organized. Round in this atmosphere, in this solar system, means organized. And unfortunately, that's the case here. Now, it does look like there's still a little bit of the thunderstorms a little bit suppressed on this side, and the ocean side toward the Gulf Stream is where the biggest current thunderstorms are, or convection around the eye. But that could very well change, and certainly we've seen this wrap around, and it does cause wobbles here and there. But the fact that we're seeing a darker red around the center now suggests that the storm is getting better organized, but the winds are not going up, but the pressure is still going down, because the eye is now 47 nautical miles wide. 3 days ago, the furthest extent from the center of the storm in the northeast quadrant was 40 nautical miles wide. So now the eye is literally wider across than the entire extent of the distance of hurricane force winds just a couple of days ago. And that's telling. But more disconcerting than that is now some of the models are continuing to show a track closer to the coast. And in fact, we might see the eye come over or very close to the Outer Banks. And certainly if anyone is watching this update and is still in an evacuation zone, it's time to go. And we're going to go through why now by kind of clicking through the different things. First of all, this is the storm surge inundation chart. There are some pixels down here in South Carolina now where all these rivers come together. In the deltas here that are showing up to 9 feet of surge above ground. That's considerable, given that the center should stay offshore, but that is because we're getting the onshore flow around the hurricane as it's piling up on the coast here and the different sounds along the Carolina, North South Carolina coast, and even there in Georgia, and even all the way down still to West Palm Beach. I'm going to show you that in a second. And the inundation forecast remains significant. This is just from the storm surge. Now, we're also going to have a tremendous amount of rain. I think I saw that in some localized places there's been estimates of 60 inches of rain that were put down in the Bahamas. That's not necessarily going to happen here, but remember, there's a lot of mountains and very high terrain out here where that water is going to run off. And so you've got, again, the big combination of inland flooding combined with storm surge and a lot of rain, and you've got really what could become a very significant crisis for North Carolina. And we're just a year removed from a different type of surge event and rain event that was very close to this area last year with that prolonged storm. But this could still, and necessarily forecast isn't calling for it now, but it's not that far from a major hurricane. And Mark was telling me this would be the first time in 25 years if we saw a major impact this area. I mean, this is a historical type of storm already, and now we're talking about a historical impact to North Carolina. So wanted to bring up the current tidal maps to demonstrate kind of what the potential of the system, what this storm is already doing. This is the tidesandcurrents.noaa.gov, which tells us the different reporting going on. And even down here in Fort Lauderdale, well away and kind of around from the side of the center. Oh, it's not in the screen. Hold on. Whoop, there we go. Wait, nope. Okay. So down here in Miami and Fort Lauderdale, we're still seeing tides 2-3 feet above normal. And they've been running that way all day yesterday and pretty much all day today. So this flooding that I saw yesterday has continued in the intercoastal area and in that area. So as we get closer to the storm, as we go further up, Titusville is now 3 feet above normal. As we get around to Jacksonville, they're a little bit protected from the surge because of just kind of this little cut angle in here, but still all the way up into the the South Bank Riverwalk of St. John's, we're dealing with water that is running 2 feet above normal, up to 3 feet as we get up to the St. Mary's River, and then on our way out, currently Savannah and close to Savannah here, at Fort Pulaski, Georgia, the highest height today has been 7 feet above, or has been a 7-foot tide. So the difference here between the two, water levels are typically, let's see, so the prediction is going to, they're running above normal. Actually, yeah, they're running above normal. Sorry. So, and of course, here's the high water alert for this. So as we continue our way up the coast, those numbers right now aren't necessarily as high, especially Wilmington, because again, remember the flow is coming, here we go. The flow is coming in this way, right? So the surge is not necessarily working its way up, or the wave setup isn't working its way up to Wilmington, but it is reaching the adjacent area here. So down here at Wrightsville Beach, already, running above normal, and that's going to continue as the storm gets closer. And then now we're already at 2 feet above normal here. So the reason that that I'm even pointing this out at this point is not that this is the worst that's coming. This is the setup for what's going to come over the next 36 to 48 hours. So the eye is going to continue to move in this general direction. Let me clear out the map here. The eye is going to continue to move in this general direction, very much parallel, of course, and of course or the coast. But at any point, it could make landfall. Any one wobble could bring it in. It's not a straight line. So the time to kind of get out is quickly fading now. So and I know Mark and the team is going to take. I know they're. One of the reasons I worked with Mark for such a long time is because I feel like he does this right. He doesn't put himself out in the middle of the worst surge and make a big deal out of it. We puts cameras out there and retrieves them when the surge is over to find out what happened. It's not as glamorous as other approaches, but scientifically it reinforces 2 things. One, that's the right way to do it. Don't make yourself the story, right? But more importantly, 2, record it so we can see it and show others, and not just show them dramatic video, which, I mean, there's a place for all that, right? But that's not what Mark does, and that's not something that I've ever been a part of, and I don't recommend necessarily jumping into that line of work for anyone who might be watching. But again, we're talking about tremendous surge concern here, especially if the center were to come in and bring the right front quadrant and the water that's been piling up in front of the storm, this whole storm, but also the freshwater flooding and all the runoff from all the high terrain that you're going to start running into here. And again, these deltas, especially as we remember from last year, a lot of different rivers and inlets and all that feed into the same general places, and a lot along the Carolinas here. It's just a big marshland that's designed to absorb the ocean, but it can't absorb everything, especially when what could be maybe the strongest hurricane in 25 years is passing parallel to just along the coast. So I'm going to do another video update tomorrow night, and then after that, I think we're going to be dealing with the effects of the storm, which takes us off into Friday. We're hoping by Saturday this is out of the way, but and it's on up to Canada, and we can kind of start picking up the pieces. But right now, water's elevated all up and down the coast because of this storm. And obviously, the closer you get, the bigger concern you're going to have. So again, for anyone who's still hanging around wondering what to do, if you're in an evacuation zone, now's the time to go. If you're in a good spot, stay there. If you're in a spot that floods a lot, time to go also, especially anywhere close here in North Carolina to the coast, South Carolina, even Georgia still. Although the center is moving away from Georgia now, and it's getting closer and closer to affecting the Carolinas, where ultimately I think the biggest storm surge in the United States will be felt. So Mike Watkins, HurricaneTrack.com. Remember, this is a inland flooding and surge event for the Carolinas. Wind is also going to be a problem, especially out here in the Outer Banks where you're exposed to a lot of water, and certainly near the coast. That can't be discounted, but the biggest threat to people, and we've seen it time and time again, Floyd, last year, there's dozens and dozens of cases where more people were killed by inland flooding than they were from the storm surge, and in this case, both are equally as dangerous. So I hope everyone is ready and prepared. Follow the advice of local officials, and of course, check in at hurricanetrack.com for the latest information as this hurricane continues to make new history for the United States.